Hello, my name is Melvin Montalvo Otero, and today I will be presenting to you an analysis and a comparison between the story West Side Story and the story Romeo and Juliet. I hope you enjoy. Before the comparison, we need to know a little bit of Romeo and Juliet, who was its creator, when it was created, etc. The Romeo and Juliet that we all know was created by William Shakespeare in 1597, but Shakespeare inspired himself by a poem called The Tragical History of Romeo and Juliet, written by Arthur Brooke in 1562. It is believed that this poem was inspired by a true story that happened in the year 1303 in Verona, Italy. Romeo and Juliet is one, and if not the most famous love story in the world. There are many people who would like to have a person like Romeo or Juliet in their life, who would give their lives for love. Later, I will be talking a little bit more about this story, and you will understand why some people would like to have someone like Romeo or someone like Juliet in their lives. This love story is about two teenagers who meet at a dance. After the dance, they feel that they love each other. At the end, after having inconveniences and problems due to their forbidden love, they both die. Later, I will talk and elaborate more on this famous story. Now that we know a little bit of the basic story of Romeo and Juliet, we need to know the characters. Who is Romeo? Well, Romeo is the main male character. It belongs to the kingdom of Montagues. Now, who is Juliet? Juliet is the main female character, and she belongs to the Capulet kingdom. Romeo and Juliet are our two main characters in Shakespeare's classic. Next, I will talk about our second story, which is West Side Story. West Side Story is a story about two teenagers who love each other, but because each belongs to opposing gangs, they end up being separated by death. It was a musical written by Arthur Lawrence, and it premiered in theaters on September 26 of 1957. Then, in 1961, the film was released, and to this day, it continues to be such an important classic that it is believed that a more updated version is being made from the movie. Now, we must meet our main characters in this story. First, we got Tony. Tony is the main male character in this story, and he belongs to the Jet gangs. Then we have Maria, who is the main female character, and she belongs to the Sharks gang. Now, you might be thinking that both stories are very similar, and if so, it is because Lawrence was inspired by Romeo and Juliet to write West Side Story. Before starting with the comparison of both stories, we must know the most important characters in the stories, apart from the two main ones. We will start with Romeo and Juliet. In Romeo and Juliet, our main characters are divided into two kingdoms, the kingdom of Capulet and the kingdom of Montague. Romeo belongs to the kingdom of Montague, and within this kingdom are the following characters: Lord Montague, Lady Montague, Mercutio, and Benvolio. we will focus more on Romeo, Benvolio, and Mercutio. Then we have Juliet, who belongs to the kingdom of Capulets. In this kingdom are the following characters: Paris, Lord Capulet, Lady Capulet, their nurse, and Tybalt, although we will focus more on Juliet, Tybalt, Lord Capulet, their nurse, and Paris. There are also the peacekeepers, who are Friar Lawrence and Prince Escalus. Then we have West Side Story. In this one, we also have two rival gangs in which our characters are divided. To start, we have the Jets, who are a gang of white Americans. Tony was part of this gang, although at the time of the story, he is no longer part of it. But even so, in this gang, there are the following characters: Riff, Baby John, Action, Mouthpiece, and Anybody's. We will focus more only on Tony and Riff. Now, we have the Sharks. Maria is the sister of the boss of this Puerto Rican gang. The following characters belong to this gang: Bernardo, Chago, Chino, Braulio, Quique, Pipo, and Anita. In the case of the Sharks, we will focus more on Maria, Bernardo, Anita, and Chino. Now, we will have the comparison between the characters of both stories. In the Sharks gang, in West Side Story, we have Maria, Bernardo, Anita, and Chino. This, in Romeo and Juliet, are the Capulets. Maria would be equivalent to Juliet, Bernardo to Tybalt, and Lord Capulet, since he is her brother and he has raised her. Anita, who would be the nurse, and finally Chino, who is equivalent to Paris, since he is Maria's fiance, and in the case of Romeo and Juliet, it would be Juliet's fiance. In the Jets gang, in West Side Story, we have Tony and Riff, who would be equivalent to the Montague Kingdom. Tony is the equivalent of Romeo, who would be the lover, and Riff is the equivalent of Benvolio and Mercutio. Then we have the peacekeepers, who are the people who try to stop the problem between both kingdoms and both gangs. In the case of West Side Story, the peacekeepers are Doc, who would be equivalent to Friar Lawrence in Romeo and Juliet, and we also have Lieutenant Shrank, who would be equivalent to Prince Escalus in Romeo and Juliet. Now, we will have a comparison of the plotline between both stories. In total, we have 10 acts or 10 events. The first event or first act, it's a street brawl. Both stories begin with a street brawl. In Romeo and Juliet, servants of the Montague family and servants of the Capulet family fight against each other in the streets of Verona. In West Side Story, the Sharks, a Puerto Rican gang, and the Jets, a white gang, fight in the streets of Upper West Side of New York City. The second act or event is a threat. In Romeo and Juliet, Prince Escalus threatens the people that whoever wanted to fight would be put to death. And in West Side Story, Lieutenant Shrank threatens the gangs that if they fought again, then he will put them into jail. The third act or event, it's an arranged wedding. In West Side Story, Maria had to marry Chino, and in Romeo and Juliet, Juliet had to marry Paris. The fourth act or fourth event is a dance or a party scene. In both stories, they met each other at a dance or at a party. In West Side Story, Maria meets Tony and falls in love with him. And in Romeo and Juliet, Juliet falls in love with Romeo at the very first moment they see each other. The fifth act or event is a balcony scene. In Romeo and Juliet, Romeo finds Juliet at her balcony, and they talk to each other and said how much they loved each other. Such as in West Side Story, Maria and Tony were talking and confessing their love to each other after the night of the party. The sixth event or act is a secret wedding. In West Side Story, Tony and Maria simulate a totally fake wedding, and in Romeo and Juliet, Romeo marries Juliet thanks to Friar Lawrence that they beg him to marry them. The seventh event or act is a death. In Romeo and Juliet, Romeo kills Tybalt, and in West Side Story, Tony kills Bernardo. In both stories, they are killed for revenge. The eighth event or act is a plan. In Romeo and Juliet, the friar tells Juliet to drink a poison that it seems that she is dead, but she will not be, just to avoid her wedding. And in West Side Story, Tony and Maria decided that it is best to flee the city to avoid the problems between the gangs and everything that got in the way of their marriage. The ninth event is a mistake. In West Side Story, Anita screams that Maria was killed by Chino, and then when Tony finds out about this, he is going to kill Chino. But then, when Tony arrived, he saw Maria and did not kill Chino. In Romeo and Juliet, the nurse informs the family that Juliet had died, and they started to plan the funeral. The tenth and last event or act is an end. In Romeo and Juliet, Romeo drank poison because he thought that Juliet was really dead, since he had not been informed of the plan. After this, when Juliet woke up seeing Romeo dead, she took Romeo's sword and stuck it into her heart, and both died. In West Side Story, when Tony sees Maria alive, he runs to her, and then Chino shoots him and kills him. In both stories, the problems were solved between the gangs, although due to deaths. After having analyzed both stories, we can realize why many people would like to have someone like Romeo or Juliet in their lives. It may sound like something of little importance, but still, the reality is that we all have to find a person who makes us feel the positive and beautiful things that Romeo and Juliet and Maria and Tony felt at some point. Obviously, no one wants their loved one to end the way that they end in this story, that is, in death, but many, or I think everyone, would like to be loved as these two couples were. This story gives us a very well marked teaching That is that we can learn the importance of knowing well the person we are supposed to love for the rest of our lives. Maybe if Romeo and Juliet, or in the case of West Side Story, Maria and Tony had known each other better, they would not have died. And maybe they could try to do things in a more intelligent way so that neither of them would end up justified. Now, you will see some video clips of some of the events that happened in the stories. In this video clip, we can see the street brawl that happens in West Side Story. We can see how little by little the participants of both gangs are joining the fight. Now we can see Lieutenant Shrank and Doc when they arrive and stop the street brawl. And then Lieutenant Shrank scolds both gangs and threatens them. Now, in this video clip, we can see, as in the previous one, a street brawl, but this time it is from Romeo and Juliet. Members of the Kingdom of Capulet and the Kingdom of Montagues face a fight in the streets of Verona, Italy. In this video clip, we can see what I mentioned earlier. At the end of the West Side Story, we can see how Tony desperately gets closer to Maria because he's completely happy to see her. Maria! Now, while running towards her, Maria! Shino will hit Tony on the back. After he kills him, the rest of the gang comes to see what happened. Now, in this video clip, we can see, as in the previous one, the end of one of the stories. In this case, this is the end of Romeo and Juliet. Seeing that Romeo is already dead, Juliet takes the sword and inserts it into her heart, which in this case, movie, it is a pistol, and Juliet shoots herself in the head so that both of them are dead. A curious and interesting fact about the West Side Story movie is that many people say that when this movie came out, Americans began to travel to Puerto Rico between the 80s and 90s since they wanted to see if in reality here in Puerto Rico we were like we are shown in the movie. Many Americans left disappointed since this island is richer in culture and we are not just people who divide it into gangs and fight constantly. Thank you for watching this comparative video between West Side Story and Romeo and Juliet. And also thank you for your attention. I hope you like my presentation. See you later.